"We can hire 3 juniors for your salary," he said, smirking across the table. It was my termination meeting. Nothing personal, just cost-cutting. "My name is Marcus Lane, 55 years old, lead systems engineer at Northbridge Living for 18 years. I built the engine that kept their company running. I built it so well they forgot it needed a driver. 2 weeks after they let me go, their world started to fall apart. 3 months later, the man who fired me was standing on my porch, begging. 6 months after that, I was the one holding the keys. Stay with me. This is the story of how getting pushed out turned into the moment I finally did things the right way, and why sometimes the best revenge is refusing to take any at all. "We can hire 3 juniors for your salary," said the new chief technology officer, voice smooth, eyes hard behind stylish glasses. His name was Colin Mercer. He had been at Northbridge Living for all of 6 months. He loved buzzwords and quarterly targets. He loved spreadsheets that told simple stories. He did not love experience. Paula from Human Resources slid a folder across the table. "The severance package is generous, Marcus. 2 months of salary plus your accrued vacation." I nodded, picked up the folder. "Thank you." "Is that all you have to say?" Colin tilted his head. He looked disappointed, as if he had expected a scene. Maybe he wanted me to explode so he could go tell the board I was difficult. "What would you like me to say?" I asked. "Most people in your position have questions, concerns." I shrugged. "Seems straightforward." They exchanged a glance. They mistook my quiet for calm. I was not calm. I was done. There is a difference. "We'd appreciate your help with the transition," Colin continued. "The new engineering team will need some guidance on the architecture, perhaps a short consulting arrangement." "I'll think about it," I said, already knowing I would not. We shook hands. I walked back to my office and put 18 years of my life into a single cardboard box. It was remarkable how little space a career actually occupies when it is over. A mug, a framed photo, a notebook, a lucky pen. I said a few quick goodbyes. Some people met my eyes. Some looked down. No one wanted to be the one seen talking to the guy being walked out. In the parking garage, my phone buzzed. A text from Noah Patel, the database administrator I had hired 12 years earlier. "This is unreal, Marcus. The whole team is freaking out." I did not answer. At home, my wife, Elise, met me on the back deck, where the late afternoon light turned the lake below our yard to hammered copper. She rested her hand on my shoulder. "What will you do now?" I sipped my bourbon. "Something will turn up." What Colin had not cared to learn was this. I had not just overseen Northbridge's systems. I had built the heart of them with my own hands. Not in some mysterious, malicious way. Just in the stubborn, careful way you build when you are the one who will have to live with your choices for years. I had asked for a documentation team, more than once. The answer had always been later. Later is a polite word that means never. Only I knew the hidden layers, the redundancies, the simple rules that kept complicated things from breaking in complicated ways. I had tried to explain them again and again to executives who nodded as if understanding was a gesture. They did not want to know how the bridge stayed up. They only wanted to know if it would look good in the photo. I started at Northbridge back when it was called Harbor and Hearth, a small property management firm with 4 buildings and a dozen employees. They had 2 old desktop computers and a modem that sang every time it dialed the internet. The founder, an old-school landlord named Harold, hired me away from a consulting gig. "We're growing," he said. "Build us something solid." I did, piece by piece, year by year. By the time Harold retired and his son Daniel sold the company to a private equity group called Redwood Capital, Harbor and Hearth had become Northbridge Living, with more than 60 properties in 4 states. The system I built handled everything you can imagine: applications, background checks, maintenance requests, rent collection, billing, reporting. It worked because it did the same thing, the same way every time. It was boring in the best sense of the word. After the sale, things changed. New executives arrived with new targets. The charts mattered more than the tenants. We started talking about quarters like they were seasons in a show that could get canceled if the ratings dipped. The signs showed up slowly. First, the documentation budget got reallocated. Then the consultants arrived, the kind who say, "disrupt" every 3rd sentence. They talked at me about off-the-shelf solutions that would not fit a custom reality. I explained with patience why the glossy box would not talk to the machine we had. They thanked me for my passion and ignored me. A few months later, I noticed my calendar had fewer invites to planning meetings. That is how you get pushed out, not with one blow, with a series of silent subtractions. Elise saw it first. "They are easing you toward the door," she said over dinner. "They need me," I said. "No one else understands how the whole thing fits together." "That might be the problem," she said. 6 months before the day they let me go, Northbridge hired Colin. Banking software background. Big school MBA. He wore tidy suits that said efficiency. He hired 3 juniors straight out of college and set them to shadow me, asking the kind of questions that sound smart until you try to use the answers to keep something from breaking in the middle of the night. I did my best to teach them. You cannot give someone what time has to give them. You can only show them what it looks like. 2 weeks after the termination meeting, my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. It was Colin. "Marcus, this is Colin. We are having some issues with the resident portal. The junior team is on it, but they are having trouble understanding some of the architecture. Could you give us a call? Just a quick consultation." I deleted the message and went back to updating my resume. I was not being cruel. I was being clear. 3 more calls came that day. Each voicemail sounded more rushed than the last. That evening, Noah texted, "Portal has been down all day. Maintenance requests, not processing. People are angry. Colin is losing it." The next morning, Paula from HR called. Her voice was measured. "Marcus, we would like to discuss a temporary consulting arrangement to help with current issues. The compensation would be quite generous." "How generous?" I asked. $300 per hour, she said, with a minimum of 4 hours. "I will think about it," I said, and hung up. Elise set a coffee in front of me at the kitchen table. "What are you thinking?" "I am thinking they are finding out exactly what I am worth," I said. Over the next 3 days, the calls multiplied. Colin, Paula, even Daniel, the previous owner's son who still sat on the board. The portal was down, the maintenance scheduler threw errors, payment processing failed for thousands of residents. I did not reply. On day 4, the doorbell rang. Colin stood on my porch, glasses slightly askew, suit rumpled. He did not look like a man who loved charts. He looked like a man standing in front of a locked door while the building behind him filled with smoke. "Marcus, I am sorry to drop in unannounced. We have an emergency. The system is down. Nothing is working. The team cannot figure out what is wrong. We need your help." "That sounds serious," I said. "It is. The board has authorized me to offer a substantial consulting fee, $500 an hour, whatever it takes." I thought about the cardboard box in my garage. I thought about later. I thought about the word disposable. "I am sorry to hear about your troubles," I said, "but I have an interview tomorrow. Something will turn up." I closed the door gently and went back to making dinner with Elise. For the first time since the day they let me go, I felt something like peace. Not triumph, not revenge, just a clean line in my head where there had been a blur. The next day I met with Meridian Property Solutions, a regional competitor that had been growing fast. We chose a small coffee shop downtown, neutral ground. The director of technology, a man named Lawrence Chen, shook my hand with both of his. "I have followed your work for years," he said. "What you built at Northbridge is legendary in our corner of the world. No one else has anything like it." "Thank you," I said. "It took time." "That is exactly what we want to talk about," he said. "Time. We are rebuilding our infrastructure. We need someone who understands not just how to write features, but how to build foundations. We want something that does not need to be replaced every second season." I did not smile. "I am interested." He slid an offer across the table. Chief Systems Architect, full benefits, stock options, a salary 20% higher than what I had made at Northbridge. It was almost too good. Almost. "Why me?" I asked. "There are younger engineers out there, cheaper ones." Lawrence laughed. "You sound like your former employer. We tried that. We hired 3 brilliant juniors. They built something that looks wonderful and falls over whenever 100 people use it at once. We do not need cheap, we need dependable." I accepted the offer the next morning. Northbridge's troubles did not slow. Noah sent an occasional text, never with any confidential detail, just to let me know the temperature, partial restorations, critical functions still failing. An expensive consulting firm pacing the halls. A week into my new job, Colin called again. "Marcus, please. We have lost access to payment records for the past 3 months. Residents are seeing incorrect charges. The consulting firm says they need your input on the database. I am asking you as a professional courtesy." "I am employed elsewhere now," I said. "Exclusive contract. I cannot help." "We will double whatever they are paying you," he said. "Just 2 days. It is not about the money." "Then what is it? Revenge? Are you enjoying this?" I paused. "No, I am not enjoying it. You made a business decision. You decided experience was too expensive. Now you are discovering the price of not having it. The board wants to discuss bringing you back," he said. "Full salary, signing bonus." For a flicker of a moment, that felt good. The feeling passed. Going back would change nothing. The people who saw me as a line item would still be in charge of the ledger. "I appreciate the offer," I said, "but I have made a commitment." His tone tightened. "You know there could be legal implications if we discover you made the system hard to maintain, non-compete issues, intellectual property." There it was. The threat. I had expected it. "The system is exactly what it was when my requests for a documentation team were denied," I said. "Every line of code I wrote belongs to Northbridge. I have taken nothing with me except what I know. Please have your lawyers contact mine." I hung up. My hands shook, not from fear, from anger I had kept pressed flat for too long. At Meridian, I started the way I wished I had been allowed to start years ago. We wrote things down. We taught each other how pieces fit together. We built not just for today, but for the day things would break and someone would have to fix them at 3 in the morning. We chose boring on purpose, because boring is what gets the lights back on. A month after I joined Meridian, I got a visitor in my new office. Noah, my former right hand, stood awkwardly in the doorway with a laptop bag slung over his shoulder. "Got time for lunch?" he asked. We walked to a deli around the corner and found a table. He lowered his voice, though the room was loud. "It is worse than you think. They have lost access to historical data going back 3 years. The backups are corrupted. The consultants say they may have to rebuild from scratch." I was not surprised. The backup process had layers and simple rules. Skip a step and the system would not restore by design. Protection is not a straight line. You have to curve it against bad luck and bad actors. "That is not all," Noah said. He opened his laptop. "I found something while helping them understand the payment system. Colin has been planning your termination for months. He met with the board about a legacy staff reduction. Your name was first on the list. He told them they could replace you with cheaper engineers and move to off-the-shelf tools in 6 months. He projected 7 figures in annual savings." I read emails, a string of them, and felt strangely detached. One line stood out. "Lane's custom systems are unnecessarily complex. He made himself indispensable by design, not necessity." "There is more," Noah said. "Redwood Capital is prepping Northbridge for sale. Colin was brought in to cut costs and polish the numbers. They wanted the books to look thin and shiny." It all clicked. The insistence on standardization, the allergy to documentation, the rush to make payroll look lighter. It was not about making the company better. It was about dressing it up for someone else. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I quit yesterday," Noah said, "and I am not the only one. Half the team is left. The consultants are saying it will take at least 6 months to get back to full operation, maybe longer." He took a breath. "And because Northbridge's biggest client, Pinecrest Communities, is considering leaving, they have lost faith." Pinecrest accounted for nearly a third of Northbridge's revenue. Losing them would be a knife to the ribs, especially with a sale pending. "What will you do?" I asked. He smiled. "Is Meridian hiring database administrators?" That afternoon, I sat with Lawrence and made my case for bringing Noah on board. He did not hesitate. We were building something we wanted to last. You do not do that with wishful thinking. You do it with people who know how to carry weight. That evening, Colin called again. The edge was gone. "Marcus, please Pinecrest is threatening to end their contract. The board is questioning every decision I have made. We need your help." "I am sorry, Colin," I said. "I cannot help you." "Name your price," he said. "Anything." "It is not about price," I said. "It is about respect, not for me, for the work, for the idea that doing it right costs less than doing it twice." Silence stretched. When he spoke again, his voice was flat. "You knew this would happen." "No," I said. "I knew what I built. I knew what it took to keep it healthy. I tried to share that, many times." I ended the call. I felt no thrill, just a tired certainty. Sometimes the only way people learn is by touching the stove. 2 months into my role at Meridian, Lawrence called me into his office. He was smiling in the way people smile when they are a little scared and very excited. "I just got off the phone with Jeffrey Pine," he said, "the CEO of Pinecrest Communities. They are ending their contract with Northbridge next month. They want to know if we can take their portfolio." Pinecrest managed more than 10,000 units across the region. Taking them on would more than double our operations. "We are not ready at that scale," I said. "The new platform is halfway there." "What would it take to be ready?" he asked. I thought. 3 senior engineers, dedicated infrastructure, at least 8 weeks of focused work. It will still be tight. "Jeffrey is desperate," Lawrence said. "He will give us 12 weeks. He will fund the infrastructure." This was the turning point. Take it on and succeed, and Meridian would become a name people did not say with a shrug. Take it on and fail, and it could crush us both. "Let me map an approach," I said. "I will bring you a plan tomorrow." I did not sleep much that night. I sketched diagrams on printer paper, filling the kitchen table. I thought about the smallest slice we could move first, the least risky way to learn the most. I drew a ladder anyone could climb, 1 rung at a time. In the morning, I handed Lawrence a plan. It was ambitious without being heroic. Stage the migration. Start with the smallest region. Build in checklists that lived in the open. Add a serious documentation phase. "I notice you added 3 weeks for documentation," he said. "That lengthens the timeline." "It is non-negotiable," I said. "That is where Northbridge failed. We document while we build. We train the team. We remove single points of failure." He nodded. "I will take your word for it." The next weeks were a blur. We hired 5 more engineers, including 2 who had recently left Northbridge. Noah built a migration tool to move data from Northbridge's structure to ours. We designed the system like a set of small rooms instead of one giant hall. If one room went dark, the others stayed lit. Halfway through, I received an email from Daniel, the founder's son, who still sat on the board at Northbridge. "Marcus, I want to apologize for how things ended. The board was misled about the risks of letting you go. Colin has been removed. We are struggling to recover. If you ever want to return, the door is open." I did not reply. Doors matter less than the house they are attached to. 10 weeks into the 12, we were ready to move the smallest Pinecrest region, 2,000 units in western New York. If it went well, we would move the rest. The day before the migration, Lawrence called me in. A third person sat in the chair by his desk, a trim man in a dark jacket who stood to shake my hand. "So you are the architect," he said. "I am Jeffrey Pine." "All good things, I hope," I said. "Lawrence says you have built us something that will not fall over whenever we add a new building," he said. "Something that will grow with us." "That is the plan," I said. He studied me. "I also hear you used to work for Northbridge." "I did," I said. "They are in trouble," he said. "Redwood is trying to sell them, but with us leaving and their systems shaky, buyers are not lining up." Lawrence cleared his throat. "Except one." I looked at him. "Who?" "Meridian," he said. "We are considering an offer, at a substantial discount." I leaned back, processing the consequence that had been walking toward us for months. "If that happens," Jeffrey said, "we will need someone who understands both sides, someone who can salvage what is worth keeping from Northbridge while finishing your new platform. Would you lead that?" I thought about the irony, the system I had built, the people I had trained, the company that had discarded me, all of it coming back into my hands, not as a trophy, but as a responsibility. "I will," I said. On one condition: we do it right. Full documentation, proper training, no shortcuts. Agreed, Lawrence said. We have learned that lesson. The migration launched on a Friday night. We moved Pinecrest's smallest region first. It went smoothly, not because we were lucky, but because we prepared for what would go wrong. We hit a snag with a handful of accounts. The checklist caught it. The fix was written down. By Monday morning, residents were logging in, submitting maintenance requests, paying rent. The calls to the support line were short and polite. 2 months later, Meridian acquired Northbridge for less than a quarter of what the company had been valued at before my departure. We renamed the combined company Meridian Integrated Living. We kept what worked. We retired what did not. We told people the truth about timelines. We put names next to responsibilities. We did not make heroes. We made teams. On the first day I walked back into Northbridge's old headquarters, the sign was already changed. The lobby felt the same and different. Some faces turned away. Some smiled. A few came over and hugged me. The people who had worked closest with me met my eyes and nodded. Not victory, recognition. Colin was gone. So were most of the executives who had approved my termination. Daniel stayed on as a consultant to help with legacy clients. He looked tired and lighter at the same time. Lawrence and I stopped outside the old server room. Through the glass, I saw the blinking lights of hardware I had once chosen. I felt a tug of something like fondness and let it go. "Want to go in?" Lawrence asked. "No need," I said. "We are moving everything to the new setup anyway." In the main conference room, the remaining staff gathered for the announcement. Lawrence introduced me as the Chief Integration Officer leading the technical transition. "Many of you already know Marcus," he said. "He built the original systems that ran this company for almost 2 decades. Now he will guide us as we integrate both companies into something better than either had alone." I spoke briefly. I laid out the timeline. I described the support we would give. I promised we would not leave anyone behind because someone thought a graph would look nicer if a line went down. People listened, some with arms folded, some with eyes wide. Change is scary even when it is good. 1 year after the acquisition, Meridian Integrated Living was the largest property management platform in the Northeast. The migration was complete. Every property ran on the new system. Everything was documented. People could go on vacation without carrying the company in their pocket. Most days the system was boring. We were proud of that. On a bright autumn morning, I drove along the lake to meet with Lawrence. The leaves were red and gold. They looked like a proclamation the trees were making, not for us, but with us. "The board approved your proposal," he said as soon as I sat down. "The Technico Education Division launches next quarter. You will have full autonomy to design the curriculum and hire instructors." That had been my condition for staying after the integration. Not more money, not a bigger title, a school inside the company, a place to teach the next generation how to build things that last, not just code, care, not just speed, shape. "Thank you," I said. "That means a lot." "No," Lawrence said. "Thank you. What you have built here is remarkable. Not just the system, the culture, the habit of writing things down, the way people share what they know, the way we pick the boring option because it is the one that will be standing when storms pass." Later that afternoon, I cleared out my temporary integration office. Unlike the day I left Northbridge, this was not a goodbye. It was a handover. Elise texted that she would be home early and asked if I wanted to walk by the water. I thought about saying yes and wrote yes. As I packed, there was a knock on the door. Daniel stepped in. We walked to the small courtyard behind the building. "My father asked about you," he said. "He is retired in Florida now. He still reads company news. He was glad to hear you were back, in a manner of speaking." "How is Harold?" I asked. "Good. He says he is fishing more and worrying less." Daniel looked at the sky. "He always said letting you go would be the biggest mistake we could make. Turns out he was right." I did not know what to say to that, so I said nothing. "I learned something," Daniel said after a moment. "Value is not always visible until it is gone." On the drive home, the lake was as flat as glass. I thought about value. Not the kind that shows up in a line on a chart, but the kind that shows up when something keeps working. I thought about experience, about the quiet pride of doing a thing the right way the first time, about the way good work looks humble and obvious only in hindsight. I did not seek revenge. I did not need to. I just moved forward. I built something better. I helped other people build too. In the end, results spoke louder than any speech I could have made in a conference room. People sometimes ask me what I would say if I had to sit across from Colin again. I think about it and realize I would not say much. I would show him the checklists. I would show him the runbooks. I would show him the plain language on the page, written so that someone who has never met me could keep the lights on. I would say, this is what respect for experience looks like. It looks like making sure no one has to be a hero. The first class in the new education division met on a rainy Monday morning. 12 engineers sat around a table. Some were fresh out of school. Some had been around long enough to have scars. We did introductions. We laughed at bad coffee. We put our phones away. "Welcome," I said. "Here is what we will learn. We will learn how to explain complex things in simple words. We will learn how to make a plan that survives its first contact with reality. We will learn that documentation is a love letter to the person who has to fix the thing when you are not there. We will learn that boring is beautiful." Hands went up. Questions began. We got to work. That afternoon, after class, I walked out into the drizzle. The air smelled like cold stone. Elise pulled up and rolled down the window. "Want a ride?" "Yes," I said. "Very much." As we drove along the lake road, I thought about the line that had begun my new life. "We can hire 3 juniors for your salary." It was a neat sentence. It added up in a spreadsheet. It had failed to calculate the cost of care, of context, of time. You cannot hire 3 of those for the price of 1. You only get them the old way. You earn them. We turned into our street. Home was ahead, lights warm through the rain. I felt a quiet gratitude that surprised me with its strength. Gratitude for the years at Northbridge that taught me what mattered. Gratitude for the shove out the door that forced me to act on it. Gratitude for the people who walked with me into something better. If you are listening to this because someone underestimated you, consider this your sign. Do not argue with a closed door. Build a new house. Write down where you put the nails. Invite others in. Teach them where the beams are. Make it sturdy. Make it boring. Make it last. 6 months after the day they let me go, I walked back into the company I had built, not as the man they dismissed, but as the person trusted to lead the way forward. I did not gloat. I did not keep score. I did the work. And 1 year later, when a new class of engineers filed into a room with notebooks and questions, I knew that was the only scoreboard I needed. The part of the story people call satisfying is not the call on the porch or the acquisition announcement. It is the small thing that came after. It is the peace of walking into a room where people take care with their words and their work. It is hearing someone say, 1 page, 1 place, 1 voice, and watching a complicated day become simple because of it. It is the knowledge that when I leave for good, the lights will stay on. That is the real ending, and that is enough.